I had just parked my car on the side of the road when someone hit me. A woman with an arrogant air got out of the red car opposite me, and I didn't expect her to be an acquaintance. Vanessa took off her sunglasses and sized me up, her red lips moving. "Oh, you little bitch, you've really made a fortune selling your body. You're even driving a Rolls-Royce now. It's a pity my brother Derek has been thinking about you for 10 years. Derek was my first love. We were well matched, but later my family went bankrupt, and I fell from being a wealthy young lady into the mud." After Vanessa repeatedly interfered, Derek and I drifted apart. On graduation day, something happened that changed the course of my life. I begged Derek for protection, disheveled, but he angrily pushed me into the public eye. From then on, I had no space to survive in this city. Rumors and harsh words followed me like shadows, and in the end, I fled in a hurry. 10 years? Thinking about me? This is truly the funniest joke I've heard this year. I opened the back door of the car and gently patted the back of my son, who was sitting in a child seat. "Baby, it's okay, mommy's here." 2-year-old Miles was frightened by the collision just now, his little face wrinkled into a ball, and I comforted him by kissing his forehead. "What? Hooked up with a nouveau riche?" Vanessa continued to mock. "Had a bastard for an old man? I knew you were this kind of person. That's why I stopped Derek from marrying you. He was even willing to give up being the family heir to marry you." 10 years without seeing her, Vanessa was well maintained and looked much the same as she did back then. Only her eyes were more mean. I slowly walked towards her, the sound of my high heels clicking on the ground. "Finished." I stopped in front of her, smiled slightly, and then raised my hand. Slap, slap. 2 loud slaps landed on Vanessa's face. She covered her face, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You dare hit me? For the past 10 years I've been thinking about how to repay your kindness, every single day." I leaned close to her ear and whispered, "Vanessa, I'm back this time to settle the score properly with you." I took a step back, looked at Vanessa's distorted face, and smiled even wider. My father and Derek's father were university classmates, and their companies cooperated closely. Derek and I grew up together, childhood sweethearts, innocent and carefree. When I was 17, my father's company went bankrupt due to poor management. He died of a sudden heart attack, and my mother suffered a mental breakdown and collapsed. Overnight, I went from a rich girl to a burdened debtor. "Vivian, this will be your home from now on," Uncle Arthur said, patting my shoulder. At that time, I thought that at least I could rely on the Tang family. "Vivian," the teacher explained this question in class, "why can't you do it again?" Derek frowned and pushed the exercise book back to me. "What's wrong with you lately? Your grades have dropped so much." I bit my lip, not daring to look up at him. The Derek who used to patiently teach me math problems was gone. Since Brenda, the eldest daughter of the Chin family, transferred to become his deskmate, his attitude towards me has become more and more impatient. I'll take another look," I said softly. "Look at what? You can't even do such a simple question. You're really as stupid as a pig." He dropped these words, picked up his school bag, and walked towards Brenda, who was waiting at the classroom door. Brenda was wearing the latest luxury brand dress. Her hair was carefully styled, and she gave Derek a sweet smile. "Derek, my dad's friend said he's inviting us to his newly opened horse farm this weekend. Do you want to come along?" "Sure." Derek naturally took Brenda's school bag, and the two left, chatting and laughing. I sat in my seat, feeling like a heavy stone was pressing on my chest. Once Derek smiled at me like that too. On my 15th birthday, he kissed me in my backyard and said he would marry me after we graduated from college. "Vivian, aren't you leaving yet?" The class monitor walked over. "Do you want to study together? I see you haven't been in a good state lately." I shook my head. "No, thank you." Walking out of the school gate, I saw the Tang family's car parked on the side of the road, but Brenda was still sitting in the car. Derek rolled down the car window. "You can take the bus home yourself. I have to take Brenda home to get something. She's coming to our house to tutor today." The moment the car window rolled up, I heard Brenda's laughter. "Derek, you're too harsh on her." I stood there, watching the car drive away, my throat tightening. Since moving into the Tang family, Derek's sister, Vanessa, has been targeting me everywhere. She always called me a pitiful parasite, saying I could never repay my father's debt in my lifetime. Now even Derek. The night of the college entrance exams end, Vanessa called me to her room. Sit. She pointed to the chair opposite her, while she elegantly sipped her red wine. Results out? I shook my head. Still 2 weeks to wait. It doesn't matter if you wait or not. Vanessa sneered. With your level, what good school could you get into? Even a junior college is questionable, right? I gripped the hem of my clothes tightly, without arguing back. My grades had indeed plummeted this year, from the top 10 in the grade to the bottom. Derek and Brenda have decided to go to the United States together to study at an Ivy League school. Vanessa swirled her wine glass. Our Tang family will have a marriage alliance with the Chen family. It was decided long ago. I suddenly looked up. But Derek said. Said what? Marry you after you graduate from college. Vanessa laughed mockingly. Vivian, wake up. What's your status now? Deep in debt, your mother in a mental hospital, a poor wretch who can't even afford tuition. Derek is the future heir to the Tang group. Do you think it's still possible between you two? My nails dug deeply into my palm, but I felt no pain. I'll give you a chance. Vanessa put down her wine glass. As long as you take the initiative to leave Derek, I can send you to study abroad at some second-rate university. At least it's better than a domestic junior college. How about it? I took a deep breath. I want to stay in the country. After all, Derek and I were childhood sweethearts, who fell in love at first bloom, and once had a very sweet time. It shouldn't end so hastily. The matter between Derek and me, it shouldn't be decided by you. Vanessa's smile froze on her face. Got some guts. She stood up. Then don't blame me for being impolite. 3 days later, Derek kicked open my door, his face livid. What is this? He threw a phone in front of me, the screen displaying screenshots of several WeChat chat interfaces. The profile picture was obviously a photo of me wearing my school uniform. I picked up the phone in confusion. The chat logs were full of explicit conversations. The recipients were several different men. The language was appalling. This isn't me. I looked up in shock. I don't even have a phone. Bullshit. Derek roared. I checked it out, the WeChat, social media accounts, even the phone card's real name authentication all use your information. Vivian, I've heard that you like to seduce male classmates at school. I didn't expect you to be even more wanton online. How many men have you flirted with? This really isn't me. My hands were trembling. Someone must be impersonating me. Impersonating? Derek sneered. Then what about these photos? He swiped the screen, showing several photos of a girl's back, wearing the same school uniform as me, with a similar hairstyle, but it was obviously not me. This isn't me. Look closely. I was so anxious that I was about to cry. Enough. Derek snatched back the phone. I've investigated everything clearly. Vivian, you disgust me. He turned to leave. I grabbed his sleeve. Derek, believe me, someone must be framing me. Framing? Derek shook off my hand. Who would go to such lengths to frame you? Who do you think you are? The door slammed shut. I collapsed on the ground, tears finally bursting out. A few minutes later, Vanessa pushed the door open, with the smile of a victor on her face. How is it? I was right, wasn't I? She leaned against the doorframe. You and Derek don't even have the most basic trust. I looked up at her, suddenly understanding something. You did it? Vanessa raised an eyebrow. Evidence. She walked closer to me, lowering her voice. But you're right, I arranged it. Those accounts, those photos, cost me a lot of money. But it's worth it, isn't it? Why? My voice trembled. Because you're not worthy. Vanessa straightened up. Pack your things, my dad has already agreed to let you leave. Oh right, I also notified the mental hospital. From now on you need my permission to see your mother. Whether you can see your mom depends entirely on your performance. I pushed her away with all my strength and ran out of the Tang family villa. The rain grew heavier, and I wandered aimlessly on the street, soaking wet. I didn't know where to go. I only had 50 yuan on me, not even enough to stay at the cheapest hotel. After being rained on all night, I unfortunately caught a fever and fell ill, lying semi-conscious in bed for more than 10 days. Derek's graduation party invitation was handed to me personally by Brenda. On the gold-plated card, My name was written in the most inconspicuous corner. You must come. She blinked, her large eyes adorned with fake eyelashes. That's right, without me as a foil, how could her superiority be highlighted? On the day of the party, I was forced to wear an old dress donated by Brenda, light blue, a little loose at the waist, but the neckline was so tight it was suffocating. The Tang family villa was brightly lit and decorated, with several long white-clothed tables placed in the garden, and waiters shuttling among them carrying champagne. Vivian, what are you doing standing at the door? Waiting for an 8-carried palanquin to invite you in. Brenda's voice came from behind, with a deliberately raised tone. Today, she was wearing a brand new pink Chanel suit, her hair carefully permed into waves, like a delicate doll. I noticed the Cartier bracelet on her wrist sparkling in the sunlight. It was Derek's birthday gift to her last week. I stepped aside to let her pass, but she wasn't in a hurry to go in. Instead, she sized me up and down, and suddenly reached out and tugged at my collar. The collar is all wrinkled, didn't even bother to iron it. She covered her mouth and chuckled, her lips painted with pink lipstick curving into a perfect arc. But it doesn't matter, anyway. Today's protagonists are Derek and me, no one will pay attention to you. I pursed my lips and didn't answer. The villa was filled with a clamor of voices. Under the crystal chandelier, young men and women dressed in glamorous clothes were chatting and laughing, holding champagne glasses. As soon as I stepped in the door, I heard a few deliberate coughs and snickers. Several girls gathered together, whispering loudly enough for me to hear clearly. Why did she come? I heard Brenda pitted her. What thick skin. My ears burned, and I lowered my head and hurried to a corner. Derek was standing at the top of the stairs, dressed in a well-tailored black suit, his handsome face particularly dazzling in the light. He met my gaze, a hint of mockery flashed in his eyes, and then calmly turned his eyes away, as if he hadn't seen me. I lowered my head, my fingernails digging deeply into my palm. The pain kept me awake, preventing me from crying on the spot. I wanted to find a corner to hide, but Brenda grabbed me. Don't rush off, today is Derek's big day, you have to participate properly. She deliberately emphasized the word participate, sending a chill down my spine. For the next 2 hours, Brenda dragged me around to various small groups, displaying me like an exhibit to be ridiculed. Vivian, I heard you only scored 30 points on the math test this time? Vivian, isn't that dress from last year's collection? Vivian, why are you always alone? Don't you have any friends? Vivian, why haven't I seen you clinging to Derek lately? Did he finally dump you? Every question was like a knife, accurately stabbing at my most vulnerable spots. I responded mechanically, feeling myself being dissected and crushed bit by bit. When the party was halfway through, I had been forced to drink 3 glasses of champagne. Feeling a little dizzy, I decided to go to the bathroom to wash my face and sober up. As soon as I turned the corner of the corridor, suddenly a large hand covered my mouth from behind. A pungent medicinal smell rushed into my nostrils, and I widened my eyes in horror, struggling desperately. Don't move, you little bitch. An unfamiliar male voice rang in my ear, hot breath spraying on my earlobe. My limbs began to weaken, and the scene in front of me became blurry. The man dragged me into a half-closed bedroom, and threw me heavily on the bed. I tried hard to get up, but I didn't even have the strength to lift my legs. I heard you're good at seducing men. The man leered as he pressed his heavy body on top of me, one hand pinching my neck. Let Big Brother have a taste today. And no. Let go. Of me. I squeezed out a few words with difficulty, tears blurring my vision. His palm pinched my throat like an iron clamp, making it difficult for me to breathe, and the other hand had already torn open my collar. I struggled with my last ounce of strength, my nails scratching a bloody mark on his face. Bitch. He cursed in pain, raising his hand and slapping me in the face. What are you pretending to be pure for? I know you've slept with old men long ago. He spat, and then tore my dress open roughly with a ripping sound. The cold air touched the skin of my lower body, and when his hand touched the root of my leg, I closed my eyes in despair. Just then, the door was pushed open violently. Oh my God! Brenda's scream pierced my eardrums. What are you doing? Under the blinding light, I saw a crowd of people crammed at the doorway. Derek stood at the very front, his face ashen. Vivian. His voice boomed like thunder. He rushed in, pushed the guy away, and then dragged me off the bed by my arm. The guy standing by the bed hurriedly pulled up his pants, pretending to be a victim. She seduced me. She said she was great in bed. I stumbled and fell to the ground, my knees stinging painfully. The torn dress couldn't cover anything. I could only futilely hug my arms, trembling like a leaf in the wind. Instinctively, I wanted to seek shelter in Derek, but when I looked up, I met Derek's hateful gaze. "It's not like that," I managed to say, my voice hoarse and unlike my own. "He drugged me." "Shut up," Derek roared, fire burning in his eyes. "I saw you lying under a man with my own eyes this time. What else do you have to say?" He grabbed the torn clothes from the bed and threw them at my face. "Are you so desperate for men? Can't you go a single day without one?" The surrounding whispers rose and fell, like countless bees buzzing in my ears. God, so shameless. Doing something like that in someone else's house. I've heard rumors about her messy private life. Disgusting, and the Tang family has been so good to her. Every word was like a knife stabbing into my heart. I curled up on the ground, feeling everyone's gaze penetrate my thin covering like X-rays, exposing my most unbearable side. I didn't. I trembled, reaching out to grab the hem of Derek's clothes. "Derek. Please. Get away." He shook off my hand, as if shaking off something dirty. "I won't believe another word you say. Look at you now, you're so filthy. So cheap." Every word of his was like a branding iron, searing wounds on my heart that would never heal. I looked around, hoping someone would speak up for me, but everyone avoided my gaze. Someone even raised their phone, and the moment the flash went off, I felt like a prisoner being executed in public. Tisk wouldn't have guessed. "You were fooled. I've heard a lot of rumors about her screwing around. I just didn't expect them to be true. No wonder her grades are so bad. Poor Derek, being entangled with a woman like this." The whispers grew louder and more vicious. My vision began to blur, everyone's faces around me twisting into terrifying monsters, their mouths opening and closing, spitting out viperous words. I felt like I was being slowly torn apart, piece by piece, by these words. "Get her out." Vanessa appeared at the doorway, at some point coldly ordering, "Don't dirty our floor." Two guys stepped forward and roughly grabbed my arms. It was pouring rain outside. I was pushed out the door and fell heavily into the rain. The iron gate slammed shut behind me, completely isolating me from the laughter and joy inside. The cold rain beat down on me, washing away my tears, but not the deep-seated shame. I struggled to get up, gathered the scraps of clothing, and dragged my aching body step by step away from the Tang family villa. The rain fell harder, as if the sky was crying for me too. I walked aimlessly, not knowing where to go. I couldn't go back to the Tang family. The school would be buzzing with my scandal tomorrow, and my life seemed to have completely collapsed at that moment. The next day, I dragged a simple suitcase, my other hand clutching my mother's thin wrist tightly. Her eyes were unfocused. She kept muttering my father's name, unresponsive to everything around her. "Mom, let's go." I wiped my face, my voice firmer than I expected. "We're never coming back." The train north rattled for 23 hours. My mother leaned on my shoulder and dozed off. I stared at the scenery flashing past the window. Derek's last look at me, Vanessa's smug smile, Brenda's piercing ridicule. These images lingered in my mind, turning into a burning fire in my chest. My uncle's family lived in Lennon County in the north. Opening the door, my cousin Marcus was visibly stunned for a moment. Then, with reddened eyes, he took our luggage. "Repeat a year? Are you sure?" 3 days later, when I brought up this decision at the dinner table, my uncle's chopsticks stopped in midair. "Given your current situation, I must take the gao cow." I swallowed the bitter vegetables in my mouth. "It's my only path." My cousin suddenly put down his bowl. "I have a friend, a Tsinghua graduate in finance. I can ask him to tutor you." The first time Griffin came to our house, I was in the kitchen brewing porridge for my mother. "There are 3 ways to solve this problem." He pointed at my workbook, his voice like a clear mountain spring. "But you chose the most complicated one." I stared blankly as his slender fingers drew smooth auxiliary lines on the paper, and suddenly realized that this was the first time in half a year that someone had patiently taught me how to solve a problem. From that day on, My life consisted of only three things: taking care of my mother, doing housework, and studying. At 4 in the morning, when the whole building was still immersed in darkness, I had already finished reciting 300 words under the kitchen light. At noon, while feeding my mother, I finished a set of science papers at the dinner table. At night, after my aunt and uncle went to bed, I turned on the light and reread the incorrectly answered questions that Griffin had corrected. "You're pushing yourself too hard." One night, Griffin hesitated, looking at my bloodshot eyes as he was about to leave. I caressed the tear-stained words on my workbook. "Mr. Griffin, do you know what it feels like for a drowning person to grab onto driftwood?" A month before the Gaokao, I had to return to Haicheng to prepare for the exam. Griffin saw me off at the train station and handed me a thick notebook. "It contains all the possible challenging problems." He paused. "Don't let yourself down." The summer in Haicheng was still suffocating. I rented a basement and traveled between the library and the rental house every day. On the day the results were released, my name was at the top of the homepage of the High Province Education Network. Vivian, total score 723, science top scorer. I submitted applications to several of the world's top universities, and almost all of them replied with full scholarships. Finally, on Griffin's recommendation, I chose Harvard Business School and became his junior. "Mom, look." I waved the acceptance letter in front of my mother's eyes. For the first time, her dull gaze focused, and her trembling fingers gently stroked the gilded school emblem. Years later, at the graduation ceremony, the dean personally placed the honorary sash around my neck. "Ms. Vivian, a private equity fund in your country is recruiting partners, and they specifically mentioned you." When I left Haicheng in a state of disarray 10 years ago, as I told my mother, I never thought I would return one day. Until today, meeting the first old acquaintance reminded me all at once of that black memory that I had sealed away. However, I am no longer the Vivian of the past, as helpless as duckweed and easily bullied. Vanessa's left cheek quickly swelled, the bright red fingerprint particularly glaring on her carefully maintained skin. She covered her face, her lips trembling but unable to say a word. The eyes, which were always filled with malice, were now filled with disbelief. "The insurance company will be here soon." I was too lazy to argue with Vanessa, and turned around to get Miles out of the car. The 2-year-old child didn't understand the strife of the adult world, but instinctively clung to my collar, his small face buried in my neck. A screeching sound of brakes pierced the air. A black Mercedes-Benz screeched to a halt at the accident scene, the force of the door opening so great that the entire car shook. Derek, 10 years, had sculpted him with sharper features, and the body under the expensive suit was even more upright than in his youth. As he strode towards me, I subconsciously took half a step back. "Vivian." The sound of him calling my name seemed to be squeezed from between his teeth, and his right hand had already grabbed my wrist. "Where have you been hiding for the past 10 years? Miles was startled by the sudden appearance of the stranger, and burst into tears. Derek then noticed the child in my arms, his brows furrowing fiercely, but quickly turning back to my face. "I searched almost the entire planet. The year you repeated for the Gaokao, I flew back to China overnight. My sister said you went to study at a dodgy university abroad. I chased you to the United States and searched through all the records of Chinese students. When I studied abroad, I used my English name, and even when I became famous in the financial world, I used my English name, so it was normal that he couldn't find me." "Let go." I tried to pull my wrist away, but his grip was surprisingly strong. Miles cried even louder, his small face flushed red. I suddenly exerted force and shook him off, protecting Miles as I took 2 steps back. "Derek, have some shame. You're scaring my son." "Son?" His gaze finally fell on the child, shrinking back as if burned. "When did you get married? To whom?" Sirens sounded in the distance, and the insurance company's inspection vehicle also appeared at the intersection. I took the opportunity to create distance. "What's it to you?" While the traffic police were handling the accident, Derek stood 3 meters away, staring at me, his gaze making the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. As I signed the accident report, I noticed that my hand was trembling slightly, not from fear, but from anger. 10 years, and he was still this self-righteous. "Miss Vivian, would you like me to call a driver for you?" the young traffic police officer asked kindly. I shook my head, holding the sleeping Miles in my arms. I'll call the butler to pick us up. In the rearview mirror, Derek's figure became smaller and smaller, but his standing posture was like a nail, firmly wedged into my vision. 3 days later, early in the morning, I almost dropped my coffee cup while drinking coffee on the second-floor balcony. Derek was leaning against my cast-iron gate, with 7 or 8 cigarette butts scattered at his feet. In the morning mist, he looked up at my location. Although he couldn't see me through the privacy glass, that gaze still made me tense all over. "Madam, should we call the police?" Alfred came in with a breakfast tray. "No need." I put down my coffee cup. "He'll be gone in a moment." But I was wrong. When I drew the curtains at 10 o'clock that night, I found Derek's car was still parked there. Under the streetlights, I could see him sitting in the driver's seat, the light from his phone screen reflecting on his face, flickering on and off. The next day, the day after, Derek appeared on time like clockwork. He would come to stand guard at 7 in the morning with breakfast, and even spend the night in his car. I asked the security guard to drive him away, but he said with righteous indignation, "The security in this villa area is too poor. I'm here to protect you and the child." On the morning of the 5th day, my phone was suddenly flooded with various message notifications. My best friend Felicity sent more than a dozen links, the latest one writing, "Quick, look at the gossip on the financial news account. Star Capital's beautiful partner meets with a mysterious man late at night. Marriage breakdown in a wealthy family? Financial talent passionately dating outside her villa." The sensational headlines were accompanied by blurry photos. Derek leaning against my gate, the angle cleverly taken to make it look like we were having intimate physical contact. The comment section was even more unbearable. "A strong woman on the surface, but in secret, she's still just. I heard she seduced a rich second generation and was caught in the act. Who knows who the child's father is?" I gripped my phone tightly, my nails digging into my palm. Those words twisted and writhed, transforming into the harsh mockery at the graduation party 10 years ago. Slut, filthy, lowly. The sound of water running in the sink startled me, and I realized that I was unconsciously scrubbing my hands, my skin already red and broken. "Mom!" Miles stood at the bathroom door with his toy bear, looking at me sleepily. I squatted down and hugged him, smelling the faint milky scent on his body. At this moment, I made up my mind. I had to put an end to this. That afternoon, I took the initiative to open the gate. Derek immediately jumped out of the car, his suit crumpled, with dark circles under his eyes. "Talk," I said coldly, stepping aside. His eyes lit up and he quickly followed. Derek stopped in front of me, looking haggard, but his eyes were almost humble. He lowered his head slightly, as if afraid of disturbing me, his voice very soft. "Vivian, I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but at least give me a chance to make amends." "Make amends?" I sneered. "I don't need a title." Derek took a deep breath, as if he had made up his mind. "If you're willing to marry, we'll be husband and wife, and I'll be Miles's father. If you're not willing, I'll be your personal secretary and bodyguard, as long as I can stay by your side." I chuckled. "Derek, after 10 years, how are you still so presumptuous?" He seemed not to hear my sarcasm, and continued on his own. "I found out the truth about what happened back then. 3 months after it happened, I found that man." His voice was low, with a hint of suppressed anger. "I broke 2 of his ribs, and he finally admitted that my sister had instructed him to frame you." I looked at him expressionlessly, but my heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. "Late affection is cheaper than grass," I said coldly. "Are you trying to make me feel moved by telling me this now?" Derek's Adam's apple bobbed, his eyes almost pleading. "I just want you to know that I regret it." "Regret?" I smiled, but the smile didn't reach my eyes. "Derek, do you know what kind of life I lived in my senior year of high school?" His expression faltered slightly. "The girls who had a crush on you blocked me in the alley and slapped me, calling me a slut who seduced you." My voice was very calm, as if telling someone else's story. "They spread rumors about me, saying that I slept with gangsters outside of school, that I was a prostitute." Derek's face gradually turned pale. "My textbooks were replaced with pornographic comics, and the teacher publicly scolded me for being shameless when he found out." I stared into his eyes, saying each word clearly. When I walked in the hallway, boys would deliberately bump into me, taking the opportunity to touch my waist and my legs. Derek's fingers clenched, his knuckles turning white. It was even more exciting outside of school. I laughed lightly. They told the gangsters that 10 yuan would be enough to sleep with me. 3 gangsters blocked me in the alley. And in the end, I could only slash my arm with a knife, holding up the bloody knife, before they got scared and let me go. Derek's breathing quickened, his eyes swirling with pain and anger. I don't know. Of course you don't know, I said with a mocking twist of my lips. Back then, you were busy discussing with Brenda which country to study in. His face completely changed as if he'd been stabbed hard, his voice hoarse. Vivian, I don't forgive you, I interrupted him, my tone calm but resolute. Never. Derek's pupils constricted violently, as if those words had pierced his heart. He opened his mouth, as if wanting to say something, but then closed it in dejection. After a long silence, he said in a low voice, I'll help you clear everything up. All the rumors, the negative impacts, I'll take care of them. As he spoke, he reached out to put his arm around me. I'll take you home. I sidestepped him, saying coldly, No need. Just then, a deep male voice came from behind. Derek is really being a busybody. I turned around and saw Griffin walking slowly towards us, his slender figure casting a tall shadow in the sunlight. He had a cold smile playing on his lips, but his eyes were sharp as knives. Instead of wasting your energy here, you should be thinking about how to save the Tang Corporation. Derek's expression instantly turned gloomy. Griffin walked to my side, naturally put his arm around my waist, and lowered his head to place a kiss on my forehead, his posture intimate and possessive. I'm sorry, wife, I promised it would only be a week, but there was an emergency acquisition in Switzerland, and the business trip was extended by so many days. I smiled and shook my head. Derek's eyes were fixed on Griffin's hand, as if trying to burn a hole in it. Get out of the way, Griffin said calmly, his tone unquestionable. Derek didn't budge, his gaze stubbornly fixed on my face. Vivian, didn't you say you wanted a villa by the sea? I froze. That was a dream I had mentioned casually when I was 15. To be awakened by the sound of waves in the morning, and to see the sunrise when I opened the window. I've already built it. Derek's voice was almost pleading. It's in Seaside Bay, designed according to the style you liked back then. I've been waiting for you to move in. Griffin chuckled, his voice filled with undisguised mockery. Derek, 10 years have passed, and all you can still do is use the Tang family's money to buy things to please people? Derek's face instantly turned ugly. Oh, that's right, Griffin added slowly. I forgot to tell you that I bought the land in Seaside Bay 6 months ago. Derek's pupils suddenly contracted. The villa you built is mine now, he said with a slight smile, but without any warmth in his eyes. A loser is a loser. 10 years later, you're still your sister's lapdog. Derek's fists clenched suddenly, his knuckles white, as if he was about to throw a punch in the next second. Griffin didn't even bother to look at him, putting his arm around me and turning around. Let's go home. Derek stood there staring at our backs, his voice hoarse and terrifying. Vivian. I didn't look back. The setting sun stretched our shadows long, while he stood in the shadows, as if he was forever left in the past. 3 days later, the news of the Tang Group's acquisition swept through the entire business world like a hurricane. Financial news was everywhere, the headlines boldly proclaiming, the Tang Group changes hands overnight, the once powerful family collapses. Even more shocking was that, as the acquisition progressed, the Tang family's dirty secrets over the years were revealed one by one. Vanessa was arrested. The police took her away on multiple charges of commercial fraud, intentional injury, and forging medical certificates. In the news footage, her once arrogant face was as pale as paper, her wrists handcuffed with cold metal, and she even stumbled and fell awkwardly when surrounded by reporters, breaking one of her high heels. My father's company's bankruptcy back then was not due to mismanagement at all, but because Vanessa secretly colluded with competitors to create a scheme, forging debts to drive my father to despair. She even bribed the doctor to diagnose my mother with a mental illness, just to completely deprive me of support, and make me an appendage of the Tang family. And all of this simply because she didn't like me. How ridiculous. She went to great lengths to ruin my life, but she never thought that 10 years later, I would come back in such a way, personally crushing the Tang Empire she cherished most. At the Minglong Group press conference, the flashes of lights went crazy. The cameras focusing on the man in control of the situation on the stage, my husband, Griffin. He was wearing a sharply tailored black suit, his face cold, but his eyes carried a lazy smile, as if the collapse of the Tang Group was nothing more than crushing an ant to him. Reporters eagerly asked, "Mr. Griffin, is your acquisition of the Tang Group based on commercial considerations, or is there another reason?" Griffin's lips curled up slightly, his gaze turning to me, who was sitting in the audience, the coldness in his eyes instantly melting away, tinged with gentleness. "Business." He chuckled, his voice low and magnetic. "The Tang Group's assets aren't worth my personal involvement." The whole place was in an uproar. He continued slowly, "I did all this purely to vent my anger for my wife." The camera instantly turned to me. I sat in the VIP seat, holding Miles in my arms, my expression calm, but the corners of my lips slightly raised. Griffin's gaze remained fixed on me, his tone filled with undisguised pride. "That Minglong could have its current territory in just a few years is all thanks to my wife, Minglong's chief operator, Ms. Vivian." The entire venue was silent for a second, before erupting into even more intense discussions. Who would have thought that the girl who was once trampled into the mud by the Tang family had now become the mastermind behind a business legend? The Tang Corporation went bankrupt, Vanessa went to jail, and Derek, the once high and mighty young master of the Tang family, was left with nothing overnight. News footage captured him walking out of the Tang Corporation building alone, his suit still crisp, but his back seemed to be crushed by something, slightly hunched. Reporters chased after him asking, "Derek, what do you have to say about the collapse of the Tang Corporation? Were you aware of your sister Vanessa's crimes being exposed? Was your breakup with Ms. Vivian also engineered by Vanessa?" Derek never looked back. He silently walked towards an old car by the side of the road, and when the door closed, the reporters noticed it wasn't his car at all, but a regular ride-hailing car. Truly, what goes around comes around. 10 years ago, I was kicked out of the Tang family, as disheveled as a stray dog. And today it's Derek's turn. That evening, when Griffin returned home, I was on the balcony watching a replay of the news. He walked over, wrapped his arms around my waist from behind, rested his chin on my shoulder, and chuckled, satisfied. I turned my head to look at him, the corners of my lips slightly raised. "Not bad." He raised an eyebrow. "Just not bad." I chuckled, turned around, wrapped my arms around his neck, and lightly pecked him on the lips. "Thank you, Mr. Griffin, for taking revenge for me." His eyes darkened, he held the back of my head, and deepened the kiss. Outside the floor-to-ceiling window, the city lights shone brightly like stars. And the Tang family's era had completely ended.